We are going to go ahead and get started. I'm April Rozzo, registered dietitian with Florida Cancer Specialist. Angie Mathewson is also on the call. She's my moderator today. So she will be monitoring the chat box and the Q&A box. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put them in. And again, as I mentioned, Angie is going to be helping me talk about the recipe and the different benefits of the ingredients as we kind of move through. So we are cooking today orange chicken stir fry. So if you're like me and you love a good orange chicken takeout, right? I love Asian takeout. I love orange chicken, but it is typically deep fried. So it's a lot of calories, it's a lot of fat, saturated fat that we don't need. And so I want a way to enjoy that without being unhealthy, right? It's cheaper for me to do it at home. It's healthier for me to do it at home, but it still gives me all of those flavors that I love in orange chicken. So that's what we're going to do today. So you saw me messing with the skillet. I'm getting it warmed up. We're looking for medium high heat because we're going to cook the chicken first in a second once it gets warmed up. But in the meantime, we're going to start by prepping our sauce, the orange sauce that we want for our orange chicken. So I've got a half cup of orange juice, and I'm going to go ahead and add, it's about a tablespoon of zest, which comes out to about the zest of one orange. That's typically going to give you a tablespoon. And so I'm just going to put that right into my cup of OJ and zest that right in there.
Did you squeeze the juice, or is that from a bottle?
It is from a bottle. Preferably, I would love fresh squeezed juice. I happen to have a container of like pulp-free, not from concentrate, so all natural
real juice,
juice, real juice. So that's what I'm using today. And the zest, so obviously you're going to get the flavor from the orange juice, but the zest just helps brighten it. It makes the orange flavor pop. It adds a little bit more brightness to the orange flavor. So that's why we're using the zest and the juice.
Yeah, I think we talked about a couple of times ago about the zest and how I really wasn't a believer in zest versus juice, but it's a whole different flavor.
Yeah.
And it's something you don't get when you get the takeout orange chicken. And, you know, I asked about the fresh versus bottle just for reference, but yeah, you are going to be like so much lower on sugar, like period, than those. My husband always gets the sesame chicken, which is a lot like orange chicken, and it is just, it's delicious, but I eat one piece of his chicken.
Exactly.
And it's really sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. So we just had some stray zest here that I'm making sure we get back in there. Okay. So to the orange juice and the zest, we are adding soy sauce. A couple of tablespoons of soy sauce. Now, I use low sodium, reduced sodium soy sauce. And then I also added in just a pinch of salt. If you have regular soy sauce, omit the salt, the extra salt from the recipe, because you don't need both. Regular soy sauce is very salty. That's why I use the reduced sodium. And then that way I can just add a little bit of salt as needed to the recipe.
Yeah.
So I'm putting that in the orange juice. And then to that, we are adding 2 tablespoons of honey. Just regular, whatever honey you have in your house. We're not looking for anything special. But 2 tablespoons go in the mix. And then we're going to give that just a little stir. Make sure we've got all of our zest in there. Okay. So we're just going to we're going to set that aside. We've got it all mixed. This is going to be our sauce. And we're just going to let that rest for now. I'm also going to take a teaspoon of cornstarch and mix with a teaspoon of water. This is going to create a slurry, what we call a cornstarch slurry. So the cornstarch is a thickening agent. We mix it with water just to get it dissolved. And we're going to use that later to help thicken the sauce when we cook it. When you put the cornstarch in, just when you dump cornstarch in without kind of mixing it in water first, it just gets clumpy in the skillet. So we want to mix it with the water and create the slurry so that it dissolves in the sauce and really helps thicken it. And that we're just going to set aside for now also. So then we're going to take our chicken. It's about a pound of boneless, skinless chicken breast that I cut up into like little bite-sized pieces. And I'm going to mix about a 1/4 cup of cornstarch just to coat the chicken. Now, this is basically going to take the place of that super unhealthy breading, the deep fried breading.
Mm-hmm.
So by coating it with the cornstarch, we're giving the sauce something to stick to. We're helping the chicken brown in the skillet, and then we're giving the sauce something to coat, okay?
So it will still get that sticky, a little bit crunchy texture. Yeah, so far, I think we're ticking all of the flavor boxes of takeout and making some pretty healthy trades.
I'm gonna put a couple of tablespoons of just cooking oil. I am not using olive oil. So olive oil does not have a super high smoke point. So when you're doing stir fries at a higher heat, olive oil tends to splatter a lot. It's not my favorite. You can use vegetable oil. I'm using grapeseed oil.
Okay, that's a good one.
It doesn't have a flavor, but it has a nice high smoke point. So it's really good for stir fries.
The one I use, and to this, like olive oil just would add its own flavor to this.
Yeah.
I use canola when I don't want to use olive oil, and it has a higher smoke point too.
I have just gotten into the habit of keeping the grapeseed oil next to the stove.
Yeah, I should try that one.
Yeah, and that way when I'm doing a stir fry, it's ready to go. It's right there. And we are going to use sesame oil in this recipe as well for a little bit of flavor. But initially, just to cook the chicken, we're just starting with the kind of flavorless grapeseed oil. So we're going to let that start to cook. And basically, we want to brown it on all sides. So every few minutes, we're going to turn the chicken and really try to make sure we get it nice and brown before we add anything else to it. So while that's happening, let's go ahead and get the rest of our ingredients ready. We've got some garlic, a couple cloves of garlic. You can do 1 or 2. I really like garlic, so I'm using 2. And also it depends on how big your garlic cloves are. So your choice.
I really like garlic too, and garlic has some very healthy properties. I do notice garlic, like actual garlic in the sauces when you get takeout, but you're going to be adding later on some extra veggies. And I think that's as important as what we're leaving out, what you're able to put in here.
Exactly.
We've talked a bunch of times about garlic, and April has a little trick. The names on here look new to me, so I'm going to share your garlic trick. April's chopping this right now, all in the moment, but one thing she does is brings home a bunch of bulbs of garlic and peels them, throws them in her food processor, and then keeps them in a glass container, right? You have a jar that you reuse?
Yeah, so my jar is actually plastic, so it doesn't matter. Plastic,
yeah, it doesn't matter.
Whatever you've got.
And then you just put olive oil, right? So that
little splash of olive oil.
Yeah. So like I've always admitted that I buy the one at the store that's pre-chopped, but April makes that herself, which is, just a little, first of all, it's a neat little DIY, a little cheaper. But what you just did there, I also want everybody in the room to know that that is so much easier than we tend to think. And it's really fun. It's kind of, therapeutic, right? Like to
I
smash that
love
little
smashing
garlic.
garlic. Oh my
hmm
gosh.
that
Yes.
knife that she's got, you just lay it flat and whack it, and the skin
Boom.
comes right off.
It is so much easier. And like you said, it's very therapeutic. It's like
hmm
kickboxing, only
Yeah, and
with
it
garlic.
smells great. That like
Yeah.
burst of garlic scent that you get.
I'm just mincing this so that it's nice and small. We want little pieces. Nobody wants a big mouthful of garlic. Okay, so we've got our garlic chopped. I'm going to turn the chicken. It's probably been a few minutes. And then we'll work on the ginger. I also love fresh ginger. Fresh ginger is very different from ground ginger. I mean, it's still ginger. We're not quite brown, so I'm going to leave that go a little bit longer. It's still ginger, but the taste of fresh ginger really is so much more vibrant than ground ginger. Kind of like the difference between orange juice and the zest.
hmm
So we just need a little bit, just a little teaspoon of ginger. And I'm going to make my life easy. It's got all these little fingers on it. So I'm just going to cut some of that off to make it easier for me to cut. Obviously, we don't want the skin and the root,
And that is one you can also buy in like a little jar. It's
Yeah,
not quite as fresh, but it is still a different flavor than the powder.
absolutely.
If you don't have either of those and you make this recipe, it's a third, is that right? You cut it a third versus
Like
for dried
half,
versus half.
half.
So you would not want to use the full amount if you happen to be using powdered ginger, but they
Correct.
are very different. And I think especially for your stir fries and cooking, the fresh
Mm-hmm.
is a really nice flavor. For baking, generally, you actually do want the powder.
Brown, yes, the powdered.
Yeah. And are you going to chop the ginger?
Yeah.
So one thing I've done that is easier for me, I will peel it and I
Mm-hmm.
use my microplane, which is like the
Oh,
really
yeah.
tiny, if you have a cheese grater even, it probably has a really tiny side to it
Yeah.
that you could grate the ginger on if you aren't as confident in your knife skills as April.
You absolutely can grate the ginger. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And again, ginger is a really strong flavor, just like garlic. So a little bit goes a long way. You want it in small pieces so that you don't get a mouthful, and you really don't need to use a lot. Okay, so that's done. I'm going to check the chicken again to see if we're browning. Let's see. Yeah. And try to separate some of these pieces. So you can see on the camera, we're starting to get some color on them.
Yeah,
And
and
they're,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, they're sticking together because of the cornstarch. Totally fine. You can just break them up as you turn them. What were you going to say, Angie?
Just that, as you were breaking this up, I wanted to point out that the purpose of this recipe is sort of comparing it to takeout, and you can really see already that this is getting a nice crunch on it. You're not giving up the flavor of the takeout. And I think it might seem like, okay, yeah, great, this is all fine and good in theory. But you could have this chicken in the freezer and then pull it out on Tuesday to make it on Wednesday. It doesn't necessarily have to be ready that night. And then again, like take a peek at the meal planning ideas. And I think pantry staples are also a good, like the garlic and the ginger, those last a long time. So your trick even even if you don't do that, but you have a bulb of garlic. I had one that frankly was starting to look a little bit on the back end, but I got through all the papery stuff on the outside and that garlic bulb was still delicious.
Yeah,
So you can really add these fresh flavors, even if you don't have either the time or the inclination to plan ahead every single week.
absolutely. All right, we're gonna let that keep cooking. And so I've also got some green onions, also known as scallions. When you go into the grocery store, they're kind of synonymous. So whichever one is listed in the grocery store, go ahead and get that. But we're looking for green onions or scallions. Now we're going to use both parts. We're going to use the white and the green. We're just going to use them in different places in the recipe. So the green, it's a little bit milder flavor, and we're going to use that to top the chicken when it's done. The white, a little bit stronger of an onion flavor, and we're actually going to saute those with the vegetables and garlic and ginger and everything. So I just want to get the greens out of the way. I'm just going to keep those separate. Now, the beauty of this recipe, if you've been with me before in my teaching kitchen, you know how much I like a versatile recipe. So the beauty of this recipe is in the vegetable selection. Being able to use what I'm going to use, which is just bagged broccoli slaw, because that means I don't have to stand here and chop 2 cups of vegetables. I went to the grocery store and I bought broccoli slaw in a bag, already shredded, ready to go. But you can also, you can use what's in season, what you have in your fridge. So you could use tomatoes, mushrooms, zucchini, whatever you've got. And whatever
I think
vegetables
zucchini
you
would
like.
be great in this, and you also, and it cooks really quickly. And I think a lot of us are probably about to get lots of zucchini from neighbors and friends with their gardens. So
Yeah.
if you can only eat so much zucchini bread, this would be a good spot to put some of that too.
Yeah. I also have a recipe for chocolate zucchini muffins, P.S. So we're ready to go as soon as the chicken is cooked. What's going to happen, once the chicken is browned on all sides, we're going to take that out of the skillet, and then we're going to add in our vegetables. We're going to cook the veggies, and I'm just checking to make sure that I haven't forgotten anything. The vegetables will only take a few minutes to cook, the broccoli slaw. And then once that is done, we're just going to move it to the side, and we're going to add all of our fragrant items. We're going to add the ginger and garlic and onions and red pepper flakes with a little bit of that sesame oil. Cook that only for a few seconds until it's starting to be fragrant. And then we're going to add the chicken back in and put the sauce in, and it's going to come together super quick at that point. So we're really, and now you can see the chicken is really starting to get some color on it.
And I'm going to add, April sent me a nutrition analysis. I'm just going to put that whole thing in the chat box.
Yeah.
Because again, with our pointing out how, oh, maybe I'm not, because it might not let me put a picture in the chat box. It's not letting me put a picture in the chat box, but I will type it out in a second. But April already said how much lower this is in fat by not being fried versus the takeout. It's also lower in saturated fat, which is the big baddie that we're trying to avoid, even more so than just total fat. I also noticed it's much lower in sodium and we used for comparison Panda Express, which is a big chain versus some of the small places that you get it from, but going to be similar. The Panda Express has 820 milligrams per serving. April's is going to have about 530. Yours is higher protein. And one we're the benefit is a lot in what we're not getting, but it's also in what we're getting. There is 0 fiber in Panda Express takeout orange chicken. My husband's sesame chicken does come with broccoli, which he eats some of, not all of it, but we are taking control of this recipe and what we're eating. And it's not taking that long for this to come together for April, but it's taking less time probably than waiting for DoorDash to come to the door or than getting in your car to go get it. And we're in control of it. And, you know, she's doing this now, probably not really reconnecting with her day and her food. But when I cook, you know, it's a time to think about what you're actually eating. So it can be part of the whole process of mindful eating when you take that moment to really connect yourself to what you're eating.
Absolutely. And this, you know, you brought up a really good point with the fiber. When you get takeout, you're not getting that much vegetable. You get, like when I order General Tso chicken or orange chicken, I might get a couple pieces of broccoli, but it's mostly rice and the deep fried chicken with all the sauce. Mm-hmm. So doing it this way, we're going to add again 1 more tablespoon of just the regular grapeseed oil. And then my broccoli slaw, my bags of broccoli slaw. Doing it this way gives us way more vegetable benefits. So the fiber, the vitamins, the minerals. I really like broccoli in a stir fry because of all the cancer fighting benefits that you get from broccoli. This recipe, between the broccoli and the orange juice, we're getting some vitamin C, we're getting some potassium. So a lot of these benefits you're not getting from standard takeout, traditional takeout.
Right. And I know, you know, some of the things that I get with takeout will be, I love the Kung Pao chicken or the curry chicken or shrimp. And I don't eat the vegetables. They're really kind of like, I don't know. They're not the most attractive vegetables to me, right? It'll be like a lot of onions and bamboo shoots, and I don't end up eating them. But I absolutely would eat that broccoli slaw. And as if you want to talk about versatility, that broccoli slaw right there can be used in a lot of different preparations.
Right. You can leave it raw and, you know, and do an actual slaw type salad. You can do it in the stir fry. It's super versatile. And again, we're not going to take long to saute this, only a few minutes until it starts to soften. I don't like mushy vegetables. So I only cook this for a few minutes just to get it to start to soften. But I want there to still be a little bit of crunch in my vegetables. So you really want to make sure that you don't overcook this. Otherwise, it just kind of turns to mush. Plus, it is going to cook a little bit more. Not much, not a long time, but it is going to continue to cook when we add the chicken and all the other ingredients into this. You can see the color on the broccoli is starting to get a little bit more vibrant, a little bit more bright green. That's how you know it's cooking. That's how you know it's kind of getting to that done phase, is the color change.
Right. And the color, you know, I have the knowledge in my brain, as April probably does, you know, what it is in broccoli, which is sulforaphanes and indoles, right? But we don't need to know that word or be able to pronounce it to know that having a bunch of different colors in our meals is better. So that again is something you get to have control over when you do a little bit of foreplanning and cook yourself for what, 20 minutes?
Yeah. And you know, a lot of this, I prepped it in advance. I chopped the chicken last night and put it in the fridge. So you can do that too. You don't have to go start to finish all at once when you get home from work in the evening. You can chop the chicken, you can chop the vegetables, chop the onions or whatever, put it in the fridge. And then when you're ready to cook, you just pull it all out and it comes together super fast. So when people say you should meal prep, this is what they're talking about.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be that you have 7 bags of crock pot meals to say that you're doing meal planning. It can be an in-between or something other than that.
Right. All right, so this is where the broccoli is just about done. I've kind of pushed it all to one side. I'm gonna add a couple tablespoons of sesame oil. That gives us a lot of flavor, that sesame oil. And then I'm gonna put the white part of the green onions. And I'm gonna add the garlic and the ginger.
And I am wishing right now we had smell-o-vision.
I know.
April froze on me, so I'm sorry if I'm out of sync. Oh, there you are.
Are we back?
I think so, yes.
Okay, so just the garlic, I was saying the garlic will burn very easily, so we don't want to cook that more than we need to. Excuse me. So now and we're going to add those red pepper flakes as well. Okay, so now we're going to add this orange juice mixture. Can you hear it sizzle?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to add the chicken back in. Ooh, I can smell the orange.
Yeah, and you'd put that in on the side with the juice, which seems obvious, but I'm going to draw attention to it because
and now I'm just going to mix it all up together.
Okay.
Yeah. But
yeah, so then everything is getting coated.
Yes. And initially, yes, I put the chicken in the side with all of that juice mixture so that it really
So it soaked it up first, yeah.
Yes. And so now that the sauce is in there, it's starting to boil a little bit, I'm going to revisit that slurry, right? Our cornstarch slurry. Give it a little mix here. And it doesn't take a lot. It was only a teaspoon each, right, of the cornstarch.
And this happens really quickly, the cornstarch to thicken it up.
Yeah.
When you use the roux where it's butter and flour, that takes a little longer to thicken up. So this cornstarch slurry method is, first of all, you're not adding fat like you do with a roux, and it really goes a lot faster also.
And see how much softer that broccoli and carrot slaw is? Like that's why we did not overcook it on the front end.
Yeah, and that liquid's going to break it down a little bit too.
So if you can see on that close-up camera, that sauce is all coating everything. There's no sauce, there's no like pile of sauce in the bottom of the skillet because it's now coating the vegetables and the chicken. And that's it. I'm going to turn this off. So I like it. I've got a little bit of brown rice that I've already cooked up. So I've got my just a half cup. A serving of rice is a half cup. So I've got my little half cup of brown rice as my starch. And then I'm going to load up some broccoli slaw and chicken. We always want more vegetables on the plate.
Yeah, and this doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have like the big liquid extra sauce, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have the flavor because that orange juice got soaked up into the chicken, into your broccoli and carrots. And so it's again what we are getting, not what we're lacking. What we're getting is the broccoli and carrots, and they're going to be delicious with that sauce soaked into them.
And it is, I'm not missing any sauce. It's all dispersed. It's all coated on the chicken and the vegetables. So it's all there. We're not missing anything. So 30 minutes, we did it.
Yeah, we started a few minutes late. We're ending just about the same amount late. So 30 minutes. And like you said, you did a little bit of the prep work, but you know, so you could chop up that, you could get, if you are cooking for one, or, you know, cooking, like I'm cooking for a couple of small people. If you
Mhm.
chop up that chicken when you first get it, you could use that for a couple of recipes. So in
Absolutely.
this, you're going to have massive amounts of leftovers. So that's another thing. You've got
I'm going to eat
a
this all
couple
week.
meals.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So any questions from anybody? Questions, comments, you can
Throw
throw
them
them
in
in
the
the chat or the
Q&A or throw them
Q&A.
in the chat box.
Mhm.
I don't see new questions, just Jamie letting us know it was working. And then I don't
Yeah.
see anything in the chat box right now. And most people have actually dropped off. So,
Right. Right.
but that
Oh,
looks
and you know what?
delicious.
Guess what else I forgot? I forgot the rice wine vinegar that was part of this
Now
recipe.
you would do that at the very last second anyway, right?
Very last second. So
Yeah.
I'm actually going to go ahead and toss it
Yeah.
in
Cause
while
it's
everything is
gonna
still
like,
warm and cooking.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Throw that
Any
in.
vinegar in a recipe you add at the very last because it like burns off, and that's like, you want the flavor to
Yeah.
retain.
Yeah. And the flavor, that rice wine vinegar flavor is really important to this recipe. So yeah, no, that's perfect. It's still steaming. It's still going to cook off. So no problem.
Perfect. Yep.
And then you can top it. So we've got our nice little plate here. And you top it with a few green onions.
Ta-da.
Ta-da.
Yeah. All the flavor, what, like a 2/3 the sodium, half the saturated fat, tons of extra fiber. This is a win.
Win-win. Yeah. And it was done in a half an hour, the same amount of time it would take DoorDash to get to your house. So,
And a heck of a lot cheaper. I should have done a
right.
price comparison.
You should have. All right. If there are no questions, then I will let you guys go. September, we're back to our regular webinar, Lunch and Learn, and we're doing it on nutrition and immune health. We were supposed to do that last month and we had some technical difficulties. So we are doing it for September. And then we'll be back in the kitchen for October. And then Angie is going to take over our Lunch and Learn for November. So stay tuned for all of that.
Exciting stuff.
I'm telling you. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, bye.